you actually took that idea and put it into practice, because everyone's got ideas, but it's actually putting it into practice and making it happen. That's the goal. Welcome to the Marketing Report. My name is Russell Pearson, and this is episode number 83. The Marketing Report is a podcast for passionate yet frustrated business owners who are looking for a competitive edge. And our next guest is going to help with that competitive edge, because it's going to help us all systemize our businesses. And I'm looking forward to speaking to him because I need that as much as anyone else. So let me get into the intro. Next guest is has been on an entrepreneurial journey since he began in his early 20s, where he sold Australia's most beloved sporting venue, the Melbourne Cricket Ground. And I want to know more about that story. Since then, his business experience has spanned from franchising retail clothing stores to founding one of Australia's most trusted digital agencies, Melbourne SEO Services. In 2016, he successfully systemized himself out of the business, and isn't that everybody's dream, by hiring a CEO and stepping back from his daily operations. I think that's even moved on from there, but we'll find out in a minute. He's an author, speaker, and founder of SYSTEMology. Please make him feel welcome, David Jenyns.
Thank you so much for having me. Really looking forward to the episode.
Yeah, fantastic. And while it might not be everyone's bag, systems, I'm actually really, I love systems. Systems, processes, numbers, they feed business. They're really the backbone of business from my point of view. Did you know that going in when you started back in the day? And what the hell, selling the MCG? Like, what does that even mean?
Well, let me tell you the story. I had just read a book called The 1 Minute Millionaire, and it was by Paul Hartunian. Sorry, it told about a story in that book of a guy called Paul Hartunian who sold the Brooklyn Bridge in the US. And he basically was watching the news. They were doing some renovations on the Brooklyn Bridge, and there was a big pile of all of the discarded wood and material that they got when they were doing this renovation. And he saw a removalist van in the background with the phone number on it. And he called them up and he said, "Oh, can you deliver all of that wood to my place?" And as they're delivering it over, he writes up this press release saying, "New Jersey man sells the Brooklyn Bridge for $19.95. Sends it out, and to cut a long story short for that one, he basically got mobbed by the media for the next 12 months. Everybody always rocking up and wanting him to tell his story, because what he did is he took all of the wood, chopped it up into little pieces, stuck it on certificate paper, and then basically sent it out. So here I was, I just read that book out of the 1 Minute Millionaire, and it told this story of Paul Hartunian. And I was driving past the MCG, and they had a big gaping hole in one of the sides where they'd knocked over the Ponsford stand.
Yep.
And fireworks just went off in my brain. And I thought, wow, I could replicate what Paul Hartunian did for the MCG. And for, like, depending on your audience, like if you're inside Australia, you know what the MCG is. If you don't, it's like our most iconic sports stadium that's practically almost like a religious icon for a lot of Australians. Yeah. Like we go there, we worship our sport in this venue. And I got my hands on a bunch of the discarded wood, the green wooden seating that is very well known at the MCG. And also they had this MCC crested carpet that was taken from the members' long room. And I chopped that up into little pieces. I've even got one sitting right here. This is a piece of the MCG, just little slivers there.
That's fantastic. If anyone's listening on the audio, go and look at this. We might have it up on YouTube as well. So fantastic. Yeah.
And you can see the green around the edge. And I basically did the same thing. I wrote up a press release. I chopped up the wood into little slivers and went down to Office Works, got myself some certificate paper and printed out the certificate of authenticity and got some photos and basically got picked up by the Today Show and newspapers, and I was on Nova Radio, and it was a little bit of a wild ride, but I sold an absolute boatload of pieces of the MCG.
That's fantastic. And I have to, ask the deeper question. How much did you buy it for and how much did you sell it for?
So I bought it for less than $1,000. I basically had my dad's van, and I mean, it was sitting in a big warehouse at a place called Wheel and the Wreckers. and they were just going to discard it all. And I, loaded into the back of Dad's van and got it for under $1,000. And I probably would have sold, and I probably need to do another calculation. It's probably at least 60 grand's worth of material in a very short space in time. But even now, I've still got a truckload sitting at Mum's. Occasionally I'll sell a carpet here and another little bit of wood there. So it's just, and what a fun story to tell as well.
Yeah, but it is a fun story. But what I love about that is that we read so many stories in books, and there's all these things that we can do. And even on the back shelf here, I've got like a book that's like how to make your money back in 30 days off like 30 different stories of entrepreneurs of how they did it and how they would do it. You actually took that idea and put it into practice, because everyone's got ideas, but it's actually putting it into practice and making it happen. That's the gold.
Yeah.
I love that.
And
well done.
The one I find with that, I think because business owners and entrepreneurs, they don't lack ideas. Like we have ideas all the time. It really is the implementation and the follow through. And especially for business owners, once they start their business and they're going, they get so busy in the day-to-day operations that even if the best opportunity in the world fell in their lap, most of them can't take advantage of it because they can't step away from the business. They can't turn their attention onto this other thing. So that's a big reason. And I know we're going to jump into systemology, but a huge part of my whole thesis around systemology is that the biggest opportunities are sitting right under your nose. You might not even notice them, or you've noticed them and you can't take advantage of them. And the best thing that you can do is systemize your business, get it to a point where it works without you, so it can deliver consistency through to your clients and your prospects. And that enables you to kind of step back and really spot the big opportunities.
And the reality is, until you've actually got your business to that point, you've got a job. So you actually have a business. You're a business owner at that point. And a lot of people don't think it's possible, but it is very well possible. And you'll be talking about it today, that you can have a business that runs a profitable enterprise that runs without you.
Yes. Yeah. I think, and that line there came from, I remember hearing that from one of my earliest mentors, a guy called Brad Sugars.
That's right.
Yeah. And that's his definition of a business, is a profitable enterprise that works.
I've always liked that one. I've always liked that. Yeah.
And it's I think it's definitely quite an aspirational thing that a lot of business owners try and strive to work towards. Oftentimes, though, they're not systems people. They don't see themselves as a systems person. They don't like writing documented systems and processes. They're a visionary creative who starts a business and gets it off the ground, and they hustle and they do whatever needs to be done, and they work on whatever needs their attention right now. And systems and processes are always important, but they're never urgent. The business owner has 100 other million things that they should be focusing on, or that's competing for their attention, not to mention that they don't even like writing systems and processes anyway. So it never, ever gets done. And then the business owner might read a book. They read The E-Myth, or they read Traction or Scaling Up, and they go, oh, I need to get systems in place. And they give a little crack at it, and they do it for a couple of months and a few months. And then, oh, this is not working for me. I've written the systems and my team don't follow them. And, we're too creative. I don't want to put systems in place. And
I always heard that one. We're too creative. We don't want to damage that creativity with systems.
Yeah. This is there's a bunch of baggage that floats around people's heads when they think about business systemization. And what changed for me, because I'm that visionary creative, I don't like writing systems and processes, yet I wrote a book on it, and because I fell in love with not the process of doing the systems, but the result. As the business owner, I've seen the difference between those businesses that are systemized versus those that aren't, and they are night and day difference. Like there's no comparison. And there's a few things that you can do to really, I've started to challenge a lot of these misconceptions and beliefs around business systems, because systems do the opposite. They create space for creativity in your business. And the business owner is typically the worst person to be documenting the systems. And you don't need to overcomplicate it. And you don't need to systemize like McDonald's. There's so many things in here. The more I started to test a lot of these assumptions, I started to realize, hang on, people have just jumped to these conclusions, but they haven't found, oh, maybe there's a better way. And that was a big part of what systemology is about.
So yeah, my first question sort of around systems in general is, I have a lot of people, because I look after the sales and marketing people, areas of people's businesses, and very much that is around processes and systems and actually putting those things into practice. And people, very much in the same way you just described the system side, is that they'll have a crack at it and they'll go whether it worked or it didn't, yet the trade or profession that they did, they spent 20 years learning, right? So they've spent 20 years doing one thing to get to, proficient or even, close to a version of mastery, yet they're expecting to be able to do this systemization in a year. Is it like that where systems and bringing a culture of systems into your business is a practice that you actually need? It needs to be a skill that you develop?
100%. And the biggest area where people go wrong is when I say think of a systemized business, the first one that usually comes to mind is McDonald's, or it's a franchise or something like that. They're the first ones that come to mind. And they go, all right, well, if McDonald's is a systemized business, I want to build a systemized business, I should then systemize like McDonald's. And they look at what McDonald's has now after doing it for 60 years. And they're effectively, it's like they're going to go try and compete at the Olympics with this person who's trained their entire life, who's got this, perfect exercise and nutrition and all of the support in the world. And they are the absolute rock star. And they're trying to now compete as the couch potato who hasn't even gotten off the couch and created their first system. And then they're trying to do it like McDonald's. And then they wonder why they fail. Like what needs to happen is you have to think about, how did McDonald's start systemizing 60 years ago? How did they build the culture of systems inside their company? Mm-hmm. And it's a lot more raw and rough and ready than people think. I remember watching the movie The Founder, and it tells the McDonald's story with the McDonald's brothers and Ray Kroc. And one of the early scenes in the movie is he's trying to figure out the store layout. And they go out onto a basketball court. They've got some chalk. They map out the store and they're saying, oh, we'll put the fryer here. We'll put the registers here. We'll put the drive-through window over here. Oh, no, let's move that. Let's have that near the thick shake machine. And it's so rough and raw. And that is version 1 of the system. It didn't top out with McDonald's University. And here's the step-by-step on how to flip a hamburger and get your 15-year-old kid off the street to learn how to make a burger. So it's evolved over time. Not only that, they are in the business of making hamburgers. So they want these 15-year-old kids off the street. But most people who are building business, they want to hire great, talented staff, and they might be delivering professional services. And we don't need to tell them how to suck eggs. I don't want to write a system that says, step 1, open 0. Step 2, left click file open. Step 3, that's not serving them. So you have to think about, to what level do you write your systems as well?
And that's always been the big question is, training versus systemization. That is a big one in itself. Now, I'm gonna sort of ask you around the principles of sort of systemology and what that's about. And towards the end of this, just call to the end, so to speak. I'd love to know how people can actually get started with their journey, because that's what it is. Like as you just explained, they're not just going to come out of the blocks and bang, their business is systemized. But what are some of those sort of principles that underlie good systems and a culture of systemization? Yeah,
the first thing that needs to happen, and I had the good fortune to do some work with Michael Gerber, who wrote the book The E-Myth.
Yep.
And
behind us, there's another one there too.
Yeah, there you go. And he wrote the foreword actually to my book Systemology.
Oh, fantastic.
And he basically says that Systemology is the how-to guide of the E-Myth. And one thing he always said to me that stuck with me, because when I was first, formulating systemology and doing some work with him, I always thought in my head, well, the business owner doesn't really like doing this, and let's try and get them out of the equation as quickly as possible. And then we get the operations person to run it. And then he said, yes, we need to make sure that we really empower the operations person, because they are more of a systems person, and they're the ones that should be overseeing and extracting and helping to get things documented and developing those systems and processes. But the business owner still needs to buy in on this. Yeah. The first most important thing is the business owner, or that visionary creative who's kind of leading the team. They need to go all in on this, because you can't half do this. This is a methodology and an approach for building a business. The business owner can't be above the rules. They can't go, oh yes, we've got systems for the entire team, but I don't follow the systems because I'm not a systems person. My old operations manager, she used to say, look, when you're off working with your executive assistant and you're working on a little project and you're off in Slack and it's just you and her, work however you want. But when you're engaging with the rest of the team and you're wanting to delegate work to them, we have a way that work gets assigned in, and we can organize priority and make sure workloads are managed so it doesn't throw out our clients' work.
Yep.
So even though as the business owner, I wasn't able to come in and throw my weight around and say, yeah, that's different. So, or I'm different. I'm above.
I think what's good about that too, and I've always had that challenge, not because I'm trying to be creative. I'm just really, I really need someone to wrangle me. And I think that that's the case with most business owners, because they've usually stepped up out of a position of employment. They've broken the rules in some sort of way to get started. If you can systemize yourself, the unruly horse in the business, then being able to accomplish that is probably a really great step forward.
Mm-hmm.
If you design systems that will actually work for you, then there's no reason they wouldn't work for everyone else as well.
100%. And there's one little extra bit I want to add in here that links exactly what you're saying through to the idea of the principles. And this idea that we know the business owner is really, really busy, and so are a lot of their best and strongest team members.
Yep.
You can try and rule with an iron fist and come in and say, all right, we're going to get systemized. It's your job to systemize your task. And if you don't do it, you're going to get fired. That's one way to do it. Doesn't tend to work out that well, because some people just aren't systems people. They don't like documentation. And if you haven't done it, why should they do it type thing?
Yeah.
So there's a few little hacks that we've kind of discovered to really make this process easier. One of the first principles of systemology is capture what you're currently doing, not what you would like to be doing. Because the business owner can't help themselves to want to optimize and improve. But optimizing and improvement comes later. Step number one is go, who on the team can do this job to a really good standard that we would be happy with if everybody was doing it to that standard? Let's capture that wherever we can. If we can take the business owner out of that equation, that's also a win. So you might go, well, Sally knows how to handle the incoming phone call and handles the inquiry and then sends it off to the right team member. Okay, Sally, this is a thing that we need to capture. You know how to do it. Let's figure out how you're doing it and now make sure that becomes our new way as the benchmark. And there are tremendous wins in any business just by getting everybody to deliver to a consistent standard, because that's one of the biggest problems a lot of small business happens. It's so inconsistent. One person does something one way, another person does something another way. Yep. And that clients don't like that. The business doesn't like that. It's bad for efficiency, creates errors, mistakes, problems, costs money. So just doing that fixes a big.
You also have a cult of personality in that too, that the culture is based off the individuals in it, not the roles. And so you can't, you lose one of those people, you replace them with someone else, and it changes the shape of the business.
Yes.
Which is not sustainable.
Yeah. So oftentimes, systemology, we first try and move key person dependency of the business owner, but really then it extends beyond that, because you're right. There are these little pockets of knowledge in your business. Joe knows how to do that thing. No one else knows how to do that thing. If Joe's not there, that thing doesn't get done. Mm-hmm. That's a problem, because what happens then, And it's a problem for a few reasons. If Joe wants to take a holiday, that immediately comes a problem. If Joe wants to move on to another position, that's another problem. Another problem is Joe might be doing that for job security, and he doesn't want you to know what he's doing, because if no one knows what he's doing, Joe's now important. We need Joe. And, maybe it's a black box that nobody knows really what is Joe doing and how long does it actually take Joe? Maybe without that visibility, Joe does a task, in 5 times the amount of time that it should take, because that nobody really knows what he's doing. So there's definitely something that happens as the culture starts to change and we shine a light on this. People who are, looking for shortcuts, like systems does shine a spotlight onto it. And you have to be conscious about how you introduce it to the team, especially if you've got an existing team, because there can be some resistance and some challenges about, oh, I've always done it this way. Why do I have to change? Why do I have to tell you? So part of the systemology also is, how do you introduce this and get buy-in from the staff? Because it's one thing to have it documented. It's another to actually get the team to follow it.
Yeah, I've got so many questions, but I don't want to sidetrack you. I can see me just going down rabbit holes. So let's stick on that one point there. Buy-in. Is there like principles about buy-in? Like, what's the first steps around that?
Yeah. So the couple of things for principles around buy-in. One is team members oftentimes will support what it is that they help to create. So getting them involved in the process as early as possible and trying to break down their misconceptions about systems, especially if they don't see themselves as a systems person. So another thing that we like to do is we'll make systems creation a 2-person job. You've got the knowledgeable worker and then you've got the documenter.
Gotcha.
So you make it easy for the team to go, meet with this person, record you getting the task done when you next do it, and then we'll have them watch the video, pull out the key bullet points, and then come back to you. Also, how you introduce systems to the team is key, because you need them to understand that it's to their best interest to systemize. So, and everybody's a little bit different, but you can say, hey, Jenny, when you go on holiday and you take 1 week off, no one knows how to do your tasks. And then you come back and you've got an inbox that's 1,000 emails and 1 million tasks in the project management platform because nothing's been done while you're away.
Yeah.
And now you spend the next 4 weeks trying to catch up for the 1 week you're off. Or Jenny, you know how to do this one thing that's so critical, and the boss says, even when you're on holiday, can you just jump in only 5 minutes at the end of your day? I know you're on holiday. I just need you to do this one thing.
Yeah.
And I've seen it in businesses where some team members and business owners haven't had a proper holiday in like 5 years, because even when they're on holiday, there's little things that they have to do because only they know how to do it. So letting them know that's a problem and that systems can help solve the problem is one thing. Another thing you can say to team members is, if someone wants to work up in the organization, hey, if you can systemize what you're doing and delegate it down to lower cost team members, that makes you more valuable, because now you can work on higher quality tasks.
Now that's an interesting one, because I've seen pushback on that one in particular, especially for those who want to control their patch, where they go, hang on, you're talking about taking my my ownership away. Potentially that's putting my job at risk. Obviously there's the one side of saying that it's going to benefit you for your holidays, being able to have less stress and all those sort of things. What about for those people who identify with the stress? They own that position. Their position is them, and so there's a real values conflict with giving any of that up.
Yeah. So definitely everybody's different. So that idea of moving up in the organization, and by doing that, delegating out, that might not resonate with some. Mm-hmm. Some you might say go on holidays and this is important, and they might not resonate with that either. So you there's a few little angles that you can take, and you have to try and find what connects. Yeah. Now, sometimes, saying things like, we need to grow the business. I want you to have other team members working around you who can help support you, or I want to grow out your division, or I want to make your job easier, or I want to get you extra support because I know you're overworked. Like, you kind of sometimes will have to dig around to find what connects. Sometimes nothing will connect. And there are times, and I don't like to, it's last resort, but sometimes you will find team members will help you get to one stage of the business, but they may also then be holding you back to get to the next stage because there's a few things that they're doing that are literally sabotaging the business. And key person dependency and having a business or a role that's dependent on them, while it creates security for them, it's actually a risk for the business.
Yeah.
And they're not making the decision that's based best on the business. They're making the decision based on what is best for them. So it's just, you have to think about how to navigate through that. There are some things, like I said, getting them involved and supporting, helping them to see it from their benefit, not yours. Because oftentimes people go, oh, I want to systemize, and the person thinks, oh, that's just for the business owner, so he can go away on holiday, or they're trying to make more profits or whatever. How does that even benefit me? So you need the team member to understand the benefit to them.
Yeah, so I think the key in that, and it's probably just good management, is that it's while there are roles, there are individuals in those roles. Talking to the team as a whole is not going to be enough. You're going to have to talk to these individuals and get them individually on board on the culture train.
Sometimes when there's pushback, because sometimes you can talk with the team and there'll be one or two people that'll go, oh, I've been suggesting we do this for the last 5 years. I'm so happy that finally the business owner is saying, yes, let's do it. And there's a little bit of a misconception because the business owner thinks I'm not a systems person, therefore my staff aren't systems people. Yeah. And what often happens is it's counterintuitive for the business owner, but great team members, A players, oftentimes they like to know how to win at the game. And if you can say, here is a system, here's the outcome, here's the framework of how I want you to do something, you're basically telling them how to excel. And some star players, they thrive on that. And they're like, oh, wow, rather than it just being a red hot mess where you're dumping me in the thick of it and I've got to sink or swim and figure it out. Now you're telling me, oh, I have to do this, this, and this, and this. And if I do that, I'm nailing my position. So yeah, it's that projection oftentimes that the business owner has of themselves, thinking that just because they don't like it, maybe the rest of their team doesn't. But that's not always the case. In fact, quite often it's not the case.
Yeah, I've got so many questions, seriously. I just want to focus my own brain, right? Because I jumped to things about the business owners, a level of quality or execution. That's one thing. On the other, I really like this challenge that I know a lot of business people I speak to are having this challenge around their employees and their team members and actually getting them on board the systems initiatives. What about progression? How do you talk to progression with some of these team members who look at systemization as being put into a box? Like, I'm now being put into that role and I don't see a way forward. I don't see a way to grow within this organization.
Part of this also links into this idea of potentially creativity, which is this idea that, if we systemize everything and I'm just this robot following systems and processes and I'm executing on this, there's no juice or spice or innovation without the innovation, I'm not going to be able to get the progression. There are some things that happen. One story that I remember for me that was a big breakthrough. When I had my digital agency and we set up a sub business, which is a video production agency, because a lot of the clients were asking for video content. Yep. And I remember, I'm not a videographer, so I don't know how to shoot. I don't know how to edit in, Final Cut or anything like that. And I remember going on one of the very first shoots that I went on with our videographer, and we spent the first 60 minutes of that drive. It was about a 60-minute drive. And he was asking questions like, oh, did I bring the second battery? Have I got this other lens? Did we send the email to the client to let them know not to wear checkered shirts because that looks crappy on screen? Who's going to be in this shot? Where's the script? Did I email the script to them? Did I bring the teleprompter? And we spent the whole time talking this. And I thought, wow, that's a horrible experience for him on the way. And I said, well, the first thing we're going to do is going to create a checklist of what you need to do before a shoot. And about 6 months later, I went on another drive with him on another shoot to kind of check in with one of the clients. And the experience after getting the checklist in place was entirely different. We spent the time, he was going, oh, what's the shot list? I want to capture this. I want to get this theme across. And I think I'm going to make sure I need to use the second camera. Oh, let's make sure that we do. And we had a creative discussion on the entire way of what the visual was going to be, because we didn't have to worry about if we had a second battery that was fully charged. So the camera didn't drop out. So
systems allow more time for creativity.
That's the big key. So it's the same in everything, and it's so counterintuitive, and you can only learn it by seeing it implemented. But once a team member gets it, if they start systemizing, it actually it creates space not only for the business owner for opportunity, but for them as well. Assuming they're wanting to pursue opportunity. Some people might not want to. They might not want progression. Some people just go, I'm happy doing what I'm doing and doing it wax off, wax on. And that's okay too. Again, you're just different horses for different courses. Yep. It's about figuring out where they're at. Systems really, when you get down to it, only help improve, because all you're doing is you're saying, what is our way of doing things? And I've got a way of doing things anyway. I might be documented, might not be documented. Let's just get it down, and then let's have a way of doing things. Like it means next time I don't have to think. Now half of there are certain things in business that just have to happen. You got to invoice a client. You got to send out that proposal. When they say yes, you've got to set up their project somehow. There's a handful of stuff that just has to happen. And you want to have all of the has to happen stuff systemized and organized. And then all of the creative stuff, you just have space for it.
And it might be that business founders and owners, the majority of them are insane. But I only say that because I remember the first time I really got my business systemized, one of the earlier business that I've since sold the majority of, there was elements of it that I really got systemized, and I found myself at a loss because I had free time. And I was so used to putting out spot fires that I felt energized when I was in a room of, say, 10 employees and they're just throwing questions and I'm going whack-a-mole, bang, 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 bang. I felt useful. And then once I systemized those things, and then suddenly there was nothing for me to be doing around the day-to-day operations of certain elements, I actually felt useless. And I'm like, it was a real challenge actually to get over, because there was an identity to putting out spot fires.
And what happens for that? Like, you'll start the business, you get it off the ground, you run it. Whenever the team has problems, they come to you. You get really good at solving the problems. So you build up your muscle. Yeah. But then that actually disempowers the team, because then they stop thinking about solving their own problems. Because why do I need to solve it when I can just go to Russell and Russell's going to solve it like this for me? And then the business owner becomes the knight in shining armor. And then they feel really important. And there's a little trap in here that can trap business owners in that space.
Definitely.
If you manage to break out of it, what it enables you to do, it's all about creating that space. It now means you can actually start to tackle higher quality problems. And we can talk about re-engineering business, or what is the big strategic move, which really, from a business owner's perspective, I think that's where they add the most value. Spot fires, generally speaking, aren't the most valuable use of the time.
They never are. But it was interesting the first time it happened to me, where I really had proper space.
Yeah.
And I had blank canvas in front of me, like, we can actually take the business wherever we want now. It became almost a bit of anxiety, like,
yes,
hang on, it could be anything.
Yes.
I have space to be anything. And this sort of, rather than problem solving, which is right, I got the muscle right on the problem solving thing, I now had this sort of like future designing.
Yes.
And obviously I got through it, but it was a challenge in that moment. So yeah.
And I think it's very, very common. And why running and building a business from scratch is so challenging is because the business owner needs to evolve. Like, each stage of the business requires a business owner to be something different. So usually what happens when people get stuck and it's the treadmill and they're doing the same thing over and over is they get used to doing things a certain way. And then it's hard to break out of that. And the longer you do it, the harder it gets to break, because it just becomes this habit of doing things. So to actually break through it is like hats off, because that's what so many business owners don't do. They get it to a certain point, their muscles get really strong, they're good at a couple of things, and they're actually more of the technician than they are a business owner. And it's that swap where you remove key person dependency. The business doesn't depend on you. That's the bit you need to get to, because with that separation, you've now birthed a business. You've not birthed a job.
And I don't know if this is good advice or not, but one of the more successful people that I know who made that transition, I literally watched it happen. They had been in a partnership. The partnership dissolved. They started looking after their own business. They got help. They got support. They got the systems and processes and people involved. And then they were damaging the business by being around. What saved them is they went away for 3 months as a test.
Yes.
And the business improved by, I think, 15 or 20% just in that period of time by them not being involved. Now, they always told me afterwards, look, every now and then I have to go and throw a bomb in there just so that they
keep
continue
on their toes. Yeah, that's right.
But he now basically only looks at new business or new business evolution rather than just messing in the existing one.
Yeah. And I have that habit, and I've done it in many of my businesses where, I can't help but step in, and then I find out the team had it perfectly handled and I would have been better just stepping out. That takes time, and you got to find the right team members and then growing into that and getting some systems and process. But I remember when we had the operations person, Melissa, who ran the digital agency, I thought I was a good manager until I actually saw what a good manager was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until she was in that I said, oh, I'm not as good at that role as I thought I was. I actually thought I was good at everything, but it wasn't until I saw someone who was really good at it that I was like, okay, well, maybe I am better off leaving it to you.
And I guess that's part of it too, like making sure that you're hiring the right people for the positions or the roles in the business. Because I know that I've experienced this, other people experienced this, I know they've told me, that they are very good at doing the technician, was able to start a business on the side while they were an employee because they had the speed and the ability to get that stuff done, not intuitively, but probably through 10 plus years of experience. They now bring someone in who's potentially a graduate. Maybe they've been around for a couple of years, and they've been told to expect an 80% of what they're able to do. But the reality is that person's like 1/3.
Yes,
that's good. So I think I would say good people are still such an element of good systems, but what's your thought?
I would say that you can have an amazing system that is absolutely flawless. And if you have a below average team member or an average team member, they're going to get you an average result, no matter how good your system is. But if you have an average system and you have a superstar rock star person, the superstar rockstar person is going to make sure that you get an amazing result, even if you have an average system. So the systems on their own aren't enough. The systems are really, really key. The people are also key. And that was a big thing for me, particularly around, I remember hearing a story about Reed Hastings, who launched Netflix. And he said, when we were getting the business off the ground, we decided we want to systemize the heck out of it. And, we started creating procedure manuals and everything like that. And we wanted to dummy proof the business, is what he called it. And then he said the only issue was we could only attract dummies into the business.
Yeah.
Because they got it to the point where it was just so particular that smart people weren't getting attracted into the business because there was no room for them, because it was just like, we want you to flick this switch, flip this hamburger, and that stuck with me. I thought, no, I want to have a systemized approach and amazing people.
So what don't you systemize then?
It's usually the stuff where In fact, I think about it more the other way. I think about what do I systemize, as opposed to what don't I systemize. If what do I systemize, I systemize the things that have to happen. So, I mean, in systemology, the first step, we call it the critical client flow. And if the purpose of the business is to deliver value through to your clients, we go, okay, well, what is the primary product or service? What is the target audience we're going to go after? And what is the linear journey to sell and deliver that product or service? How do we grab the attention of the target audience? How do we handle the incoming inquiry? How do we answer the phone? How do we sell them and qualify them? How do we issue a proposal? How do we deliver the core product or service? And how do we get them to come back? That map is a fantastic place to start.
You know what I love about that? How much detail was in that first bit, which is the bit I love, the marketing into sales, into conversion. And then you went, and then delivery and get them to come back. Just 2 steps.
That's right. That's right. And the critical client flow by design, I literally only allow 1 or 2 words in each box. And some people's brains just go, you can't do that. But what we try and do here is it's the 80-20. How do we constrict where you start? Because the biggest question I get when it comes to systemization is, where do I start? What are the first systems I put in place? So it's 80-20. How do we just really narrow focus down into the core delivery of this product or service? How do we simplify that? And then later on, we can add the detail in, and we can think about other departments and adding HR and hiring staff and finance system. All that comes later. Let's first figure out how the business makes money. And even if we catch it high level, most business owners, a lot of business owners, they haven't even thought through that process. And as soon as they do it, they get an aha moment and they go, oh, I don't have a way that we're onboarding clients.
Yeah.
No wonder I keep on getting painful clients who are calling me up every second day saying, where is my product or service? I haven't set the expectations. Or they might go, no wonder I don't have any, enough leads. Well, I don't have any lead generation systems that we're consistently following. So it's oftentimes just going through this exercise for some people can be quite, they get the aha to go, I can see the hole in my business now. I was a really great salesperson, so my muscle for really great sales is strong, but I'm not a marketer. So I'm really, really weak at that. Or, oftentimes maybe I'm a technician. I'm great at doing the work. Usually the business owner has 1 area, 2 areas that are really strong, and then they neglect some of the other parts of the business.
Yeah, I love you pointed out the onboarding one. That's such a big aha for so many people. And it was for me early in my marketing business, where I was being told at the other end of an engagement that, well, I thought that it would go this way.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I thought we had that conversation. And it's a case of, no, I didn't onboard them properly. I didn't set the expectations. And it's not just, setting the expectations at every stage. Yeah. So I love that. Yeah. Fantastic. So you've kind of summed up the first steps, which is that sounds like that client journey and the steps from identifying who to helping them come back.
Yeah. So the 7 steps of systemology. Step number 1 is to define, which is identify the 10 to 15 systems you should start with. Step number 2, we call it assign. That's where in the team does this knowledge currently reside, because we want to figure out who we're going to work with to extract. Step number 3 is extract. And I gave you some tips on that. It's a 2-person job. And preferably, we don't want the business owner involved where we can. And we capture what you're currently doing, not what you would like to be doing. Step number 4 is, we call it organize. Where is this stuff going to live? Like, how are you going to integrate your how-to documents with your project management platform? Step number 5 is integrate. And that's all about how do we get the team on board and buy-in. We talked a bit about that. Step number 6 is scale. What are the systems required to scale outside of what we identified as part of the critical client flow in that first step?
Yep.
And then the final stage is actually optimize. And a lot of people get this wrong because they try and make the systems just right up front. And we talked a bit about that at the start, but this whole idea of optimize comes last. Mm-hmm. You set dashboards in place, you listen to your business, and then you use systems as a way to permanently solve the problems that pop up. Kind of like what you were saying, these little fires pop up and you think, oh, maybe if we tweak the system rather than, we're always chasing debtors or, and we never get our invoices paid on time. Well, maybe we make a change to the system where they have to pay up front before we even start. And you get to the point where you then start to, the final stage, engineer the system and just go, hey, we can remove this problem completely by moving this step or taking this step out. And that's the final stage. So they're the 7 stages of systemology. It's design, or define rather, assign, extract, organize, integrate, scale, and optimize.
Fantastic. And there's 2 in there. I just wanted to really quickly qualify to see that I understand. One with the, I think it was step 4.
Organize.
Yeah, organize is like how we're going to actually deliver sort of the system as far as education.
Yeah, to the team. Yeah,
multiple different ways. There's different people. Learning styles is not necessarily a qualified thing, but I still believe in it. Some things need to be delivered by video, some potentially are audio, some are written down. Is it having
a central location? A big part of it is having a central location. It's the knowledge, the brain of the business. That's a big part of it. And then also, it's not enough to have it written down. You also need to have it the point at which the task is assigned to a team member. So you need clear who is doing what by when, and a link to the how to. So it's
that's cool. Yeah.
If you use a project management platform, something like Asana, Monday.com, Teamwork PM, Trello, I mean, there's 50 bazillion of them.
My partner, she's she's obsessed with Asana because it has cats and unicorns, but she's always trying to push me into it. And I'm like, I'm not a systems person, but I can absolutely see the value, especially when you attach a task to the how-to of that task. That's gold.
Clear accountability. Who is doing what by when and how.
And 6, I think, was a scaling one. I would imagine that from time to time, what got you to here won't get you to there. You need to review these systems to say, are they still scalable?
And also, I think of it in terms of your business is one system and there are subsystems in that complete system. So a subsystem might be your marketing system, your sales system, your finance system, your operation systems, like they're departments in your business. Oftentimes business owners, they're strong in 1 or 2 departments. And the scale is about making sure that you're strong in all of the departments. So you need to build out systems for HR and you need to build out systems for finance. And it's about rounding out those areas. That's a big part of what that piece is about.
Yeah, fantastic. So obviously there's the book Systemology. Where can people find out more about you and your business now? It's not just you as an author. There's a business behind Systemology. Tell us briefly about that and where they can find out more about it.
Yes. For the book, heading over just to Amazon, that's a great place to get it. If you're an audio person, I mean, you're listening to the podcast right now, there is the audio version of Systemology, and Michael Gerber reads the foreword, his wife.
I was going to say, I listened to Michael Gerber is great. I read the book, then I listened to the audio, then I reread the book because he speaks so slowly and lovely.
His deep tones. He's got a fantastic radio voice. I think also best listened at 2 speed.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah.
Yes. So the audio book's a great one. Heading over to systemology.com, there's the links to everything there. And we've really got sort of a few ways we can help people the book is complete. It says everything it needs to, but if you want to go deeper, if you want some extra support, we have some different ways that we work together, everything from an online program through to working one-on-one. We basically certify people in systemology. We call them systemologists. They're like business coaches and accountants, exit planners, business advisors. They get certified in systemology and then they work one-on-one with their clients to implement it. So again, just depends on how sort of hands-on you need support. But the book, like I said, starting off with the book, it says the entire methodology in there. It's pretty well spelled out. That for a lot of people is enough.
I love this because we had Trav Bell on a previous podcast talking about licensing, and your piece fits really nicely into his. And I love the fact that you're actually doing what you say. You're practicing what you preach.
Yeah. Well, for me, after I sold the digital agency, I almost see Systemology as a startup again. I'm right in the thick of it. I'm working with my systemologists. I'm helping with the marketing. I'm everything at the moment, but I'm growing through it. And my plan is I'm going to follow the Systemology process, remove myself from the operations. So yeah, I felt like the systemologists was a critical piece of me going, hey, I eat my own dog food here.
I think it's better than dog food. Thank you so much, David, for being on the podcast. Fascinating conversation and stuff that I'm personally even going to be looking to implement more in my business. So I really appreciate the conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Fantastic. And for everyone else, actually, absolutely go to systemology.com. I'm going to be posting the links in the show notes. You can see that we're very passionate about business and helping people improve their businesses in all areas. I would love you all to have a business that you can actually step back from when the time comes, when you want to step out of the work and actually just own a business and reap the rewards of all the hard work you're putting in. If anyone wants some help with the sales and marketing sides of their systemization, definitely reach out to me at russellpearson.com. Until next time, stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one. Make sure to visit russellpearson.com for more podcast episodes, videos, and more. russellpearson.com.